Trying to get a live done. I'm going to be talking about a few things that I addressed before in prior videos. I'll just wait a few minutes for everybody to come on, and then we could start. If anybody has any questions, they could always put it in the box in the comments. I have a list of about 5 things that I basically want to talk about. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be going over 5 of my videos and do a little Q&A if anybody has any questions. So let's start. Also, when you come on, you could let me know if you can hear me. Right, I see one person that's on already. Okay, so first thing that I want to start are the HYSAs. The acronym stands for High Yield Savings Account. Now, I've talked about high yield savings accounts several times on my videos, but I just wanted to go a little bit more in detail about the significance of them and why they're important. So generally, people have always saved traditionally by putting their money in banks, but with high yield savings accounts, you get a higher interest rate, you get a higher percentage yield than just putting your money in a bank. So what I did initially when I started working with the high yield savings accounts, I went online and I Googled a few things. And when I Googled it, I saw the ones that were basically giving the highest percentage rate. So that's what I went with. So the good thing with high yield savings accounts is that they they don't give you the regular interest rate. Like, for example, if you go to a bank and you get maybe like, I don't know, 0.3% or 0.5% or 0.5%. The average high yield savings account, you're getting anywhere from 3.75%, like up to 4.5%. You're getting a lot more for your money. And generally, most of them, they don't really require you to have a lot to start. Some of them, they just want you to set it up where you have the direct deposit going into the bank. And once you have direct deposit going into the bank, that'll just contribute to that savings. Right. And you earn your interest. So a lot of them, they give you like a sweep. What that is, it's called a cash sweep, where you basically see the interest that you earn every single month on the high yield savings accounts. So, I like those. I think those are good. It's a good way to save. It's also, like a motivator, because you're going to get a higher percentage rate or a higher return. You tend to want to stick around with that, that type of savings account more than the traditional banks. Banks are good. Banks, we need banks, for regular banks for everyday regular banking, such as paying our bills, setting up, using our debit cards, etc. But when you're trying to get the best for your money and you're trying to see, how much you could possibly earn on the interest, I think the high yield savings accounts are the best ones. So a couple of them that I like. I know that Wealthfront has good high yield savings accounts. And again, if you really want to compare them side to side, because most times when you Google these things, if you look at it, you'll see, they have it lined up where you can see like where you're getting the highest percentage rate. Okay? Right. That's what you have to do. So, that's what high yield savings accounts do. Another good one that I found is Moomoo. Moomoo is actually very good to invest in stocks and so forth. They have the cash sweep also. They also have high yield savings accounts. They give you like a certain amount. They give you like a certain amount of money. Okay. All right. So those are the high yield savings accounts. Now, let's look at the other topic that I want to talk about. I wanted to talk about something having to do with business funding. Okay. So Business funding is for people that want to start a business, and rather than going, and asking people for money and begging for money, you end up getting funding through something called the SBA. It's called the Small Business Administration. In one of my videos, I talked about where you get funding from them. You just go to SBA.com and so forth. And when you go to SBA.com, they give you, your funding. Okay, but you have to apply for it. And like anything else, like any other product that I talked about, whether it's the high yield savings account or SBA funding, you have to apply for it. Okay. So now let's look at how the SBA works. So first of all, the SBA, I think, was founded in the 1950s. And in the 1950s, whatever, a lot of people wanted to start business. This is after the whole baby boomers thing. They didn't know where to get money from. And whether it's the 1950s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and it doesn't matter, the year 2000, it's a little bit hard for people to get money for funding. It's one of the hardest things you'd have to do. If you have the dream of starting a business and you don't have any money, because it takes a lot of money to start a business, if you don't have any money to start the business, you're not going to, what's the word? You're not going to be able to, get the funding that you need to start. You have to basically get that in place. You have to plan. You have to consult organizations that could help you. And the good old fashioned way, you can borrow from friends and family. But I'm talking about where if you don't want to borrow from family and friends, you could resort to using the SBA to get the funding. Right. And again, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that it's easy as one, two, three, to get the funding. You have to literally like apply for stuff, and they're gonna take your income into consideration. They're also gonna, you know, look at, your debt to income ratio. A lot of times they might ask you for something called a business plan. And, with the business plan, you have to basically show them how you plan to use the money, how you plan to exercise, getting equipment, or how you plan to, exercise doing payroll, the little, meat and potatoes of doing a business. Those are what, the SBA, requires or asks you for when they're trying to, get you funding for your business. And of course, you can get you can get funding other ways. You could do like business credit and so forth, which is another topic, and that's a different video. But for now, I'm just gonna stick to, basically how the SBA can help you to fund your business if you want to, if you want to get funding, or if you want to get money to help you to start that business. And they have different type of loans. They have micro loans. They have something called 7A loans. It all depends on what you're doing or what you need the money for. And again, with every loan, every product, whether it's for business or it's for regular, you need to be able to, get some type of funding. All right. So that's it for SBA funding. If anybody has any questions, I could try my best to answer it. All right. Speaking of funding and money, the next topic that I want to touch on is get more funding from the bank. Right. So many times when people, want to borrow money or they need some type of money, again, my channel always talks about like self growth, self reliance, self independence. I always talk about, being able to, have a bank or some place that you can, get your money from. For me personally, I'd rather go into a bank and ask for a loan than calling somebody that I know personally, because it has always been my experience that the people that you know and that you think are going to help you, 9 times out of 10, those people really don't help. They don't help because either they're not in a position financially to help you, or they just don't want to help you. I don't know what the situation, the case is, but rather than embarrassing yourself or letting people know your business without um, without any just cause or no reason for help, I think it's a little bit easier to go to your bank and get some help. So again, and as I always say in my videos, you're not just gonna walk in there and say, "Hey, my name is so and so. Can I just get a loan, or can you just fund me?" They're not gonna do it that way. You have to show them that you have a relationship, with the bank. You have to demonstrate your relationship with the bank. So, what's a relationship with the bank? And a lot of people don't understand what a banking relationship is. Yes, you bank there. Yes, you have a debit card there. But what else are you using? Are you utilizing the products that the bank has? Are you, taking advantage of the benefits? What is it you're doing to show the bank that you're financially responsible? So, some ways that you can get funding from your bank. Okay, a lot of people have their direct deposits coming into the bank. Okay, a lot of people have their direct deposits coming there where you get to withdraw. And I had a viewer on one of my videos saying that it's not possible for you to, set up direct deposits in more than one bank. Well, that's not true. That's not true. That's false. You can have 100 different um, direct deposit, different places you can send your money. So if you work at XYZ company and, I'm just saying, let's say you're getting $1,000 for your check, right? Rather than have that whole $1,000 deposited into one bank, you can literally just go to your HR and have your human resource department or your payroll deposit that money into multiple different bank accounts. For me, I say, at least two or three. Maybe you want to have them send money to one place where, you save a little bit. I always emphasize paying myself, or you pay yourself first. Or if you don't have them send to that place, you can basically have them send that you used to pay your primary bills into another account. So it's kind of up to you how you, but yes, you can split your direct deposits into different banks, or even if it's just one bank, maybe you send some of your money into your checking, or you send some of your money into your savings. You could also have a money market account. I mean, there's so many different types of products in the bank. I remember when I first went to open a bank account. My gosh, this is like in the 90s. This is years ago, and I really didn't know about banking, and I had to learn about writing checks at that point. And I was a teenager, and I remember the lady saying to me, she says, "Well, when you bring your check here, how do you want to split your money up? Do you just want to cash your check, or you want to just cash into your checking, or you want to put some money into your savings?" And at the time, again, being 17, I didn't really understand banking, and I said, "Oh, I'll just leave it where I'll just be able to use it." She said, "Well, in the future, if you change your mind, just check out the different products that we have." But again, being a 17-year-old girl and just, starting to work and, getting a little money, I'm not thinking about any relationships with banks. I mean, I didn't care. I was 17. But being an adult now, where we're in the real world, and we, kind of have to pay our bills and balance out our money and budget and have things and save for rainy days, we kind of have to, what do you call it? We kind of have to balance and send our money to different places. So that's what I always, encourage people to do. That's the good thing about having, multiple bank accounts. And that's another way, once you have that banking relationship, when you're opening multiple accounts, sending your money there, that's another way that the bank actually allows you to, you know, borrow money when you need to. And of course, as I said before, you can basically, apply for a loan. A lot of them have they call them like quick loans. Um, a lot of people used to fall victim to those payday loans. And again, when I say victim to payday loans, those loans were sometimes very predatory, where they would lend you the money, but the interest rate that they charge you to lend you the money were so high that at the end of the day, you ended up paying more. Like, let's say, for example, you borrowed $100, for a payday loan or a little quick loan. By the time you pay that money off, you ended up paying that bank or that organization like $500, because the interest was like 633%, as opposed to just borrowing money from your bank where maybe you do like a 5% or 8%. Because again, whether it be your bank, you know, those little small payday companies, whatever. Everybody wants to make money on the money that they lend you. I mean, banks are in the business of making money. Banks, financial institutions, anywhere that you borrow money from, they're in the business of making money. When they lend you their money or they, issue some type of funds, there's got to be something in it for them. And what's in it for them is that they're going to be able to make a little bit of money. So that is, you have to also look at that when you're trying to borrow money. Right. So those are just some of the ways that you can get, money from your bank. You can basically get money from your bank by building a relationship with your bank. Build that relationship with your bank. In time, they'll see you're financially responsible. They'll see that, it's something that you've been working with them for a long time. You're having your money sent there. I think they'll be more than happy, or they're more likely to work with you to lend you some type of money. So that's how you get money from your bank. Another thing that I wanted to add to that is that, speaking of banking, I also talked about having multiple bank accounts. It's so imperative to have different bank accounts, because I remember a time, again, and I have this on another one of these videos on my channel, where I was traveling. I was telling a story time. I was traveling, and when I was traveling, when I went to the airport and I was trying to withdraw my money because I was literally about to get on a flight, uh, um, the ATM wouldn't allow me to take my money out. Now, ironically, that was in, I think, early 2000s. Ironically, I had a friend at the time, and she used to work for a major insurance firm, and she was into financing, finance and savings, and she used to give me a few pointers. But again, listen, these advice that people give you, whether solicited or unsolicited, they become cliche after a while. You hear them, you don't care. You don't hear them, you hear them, but you ignore them. You hear them, you use them. It's all up to you. Right. So I remember my friend at the time telling me, she was like, Melinda, you got to make sure that you have a few bank accounts. Well, I didn't take her advice. So I had my money going into one specific bank all the time. And that one bank, and I'm still with that bank today, believe it or not. It's been over 17 years since I've been with that bank. It's America's biggest bank. I remember the moment I was trying to withdraw my money, the ATM gave me, the little printout, the error messages, and the printout said, you know what, call the bank, whatever. This, mind you, this is like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm about to catch a 5 o'clock flight, and I'm flying internationally. I'm going to the Caribbean. So I called the bank, and of course, they did a great security check. They verified the information that I had there. They checked who I was, etc. And they asked me, they said, is that you at so and so? And I'm like, yes, it's me. And we went a whole security check. Mind you, after the representative, after she verified that it was really me and it was my check and all sorts, and it was my money, and I was one that made my last deposit, my last check, she said, okay, where are you going? So I told her in detail where I'm going. So she says, well, we're here in the United States, and I don't know, we don't know the country that you're going to. So we need to notate in our system some places that you might go if you're trying to withdraw money. And again, in this day and age, with security and so much identity, they were actually doing a great job by verifying that it really was my account. So I ended up telling her the different places where I was going to be. Told her where I was going to be, exactly, some places that I might stay, different provinces. And it's funny enough, she asked me, she said, you think, how much you'd withdraw each day? Said maximum maybe 100 US per day. I don't know. But she said, okay. So she said, we're going to give you a window and a cap. So again, if anything is withdrawn above that, then we'll know whether it's you or it's somebody else, or there's any theft or so forth. Excellent. So, she authorized it, because I said to her, I said, listen, I said, I don't have any other money. I don't have no way of getting any money. I remember telling her this is my only account, and I really need to have some money in my hands to, go on plane and everything. And she says, well, we'll make an exception and whatever, because you've been with us for so many years. Mind you, I've been with that bank, like, I think it was maybe like a good 7 years that I was with that bank at the time. So in any event, I ended up getting my money. Whenever I was in the country, when I was on my vacation, I would withdraw money and so forth. The bank didn't give me a problem. Now, it's really not a fact of blaming the bank. I mean, I was able to get my money, and as I said, I'm still with that bank today. But here is the lesson that I learned. And it goes back to what I was saying about my friend that had told me that it's good to have more than one account, put a little here, put a little there. And so, in the end, when you're thinking about like tomorrow, a rainy day, you could always go to another one if one isn't working, or God forbid there's a glitch in the system. So I ended up after that, and it wasn't immediately, but when I came back from my vacation, I remember that I did go and open up another account. I mean, that was years ago. That was like, you know, 11 years ago, now that I think back about it. But to this day, I have more than one bank account. Yes, I do. And the reason why I have more than one bank account is like I could save a little here, save a little there. If one is giving me a hard time or it's not allowing me to use my ATM card and withdraw from another one. As a word of caution, I wouldn't just what's the word? I wouldn't just, withdraw my money the day that I'm traveling. I'd be a lot more prepared. And again, as you get older, you get wiser, you get better. Things change. So that was, the good thing about um, you know, me not being able to get my money. That was a lesson that I learned, that preparation is key. And in this life, and with financing, like you have to basically prepare. You can't just get up and do things and not have a plan or a sound type of plan, especially when it comes to your finance and money. Because as I always say in my videos, like you can work for so long, you can spend like a whole 2 weeks, 10 days of payroll working, you get that check and it literally vanishes in 5 minutes and you don't even realize what you spent your money on. So it's always good to kind of prepare and plan how you're going to spend that money. And as you see me here with my pen, I literally have a list of, what I wanted to talk about. All right. The next thing that I wanted to address, speaking of, borrowing money and so forth, I wanted to talk about, you know, some people to basically stay away from when you're trying to level up your money, you're trying to let your money grow. Because now, we talked about if we were doing a business where we can go and get money for doing a business. We were also talking about, having multiple or different bank accounts or stashing our money in different places. We've also talked about, a great way to save is our high yield savings accounts. So now I want to talk about some type of people that you need to kind of stay away from, or some, situation that you got to stay away from when you're trying to level up your money. So the first one that I basically touched on when I made that video, I talked about the user. And what is so ironic about the user is that they use you so, so passively, so deceptively. It's like, the user can be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be your significant other. It's anyone that you think is, basically close to you, or somebody that you have trust, or somebody that basically manipulated you into trusting them. And how they use you and say, hey, give me this, give me that. What they do is they um they basically do it very passive. In other words, they're very slick about it. They might be trying to use you, but at the same time, they're not really nice to you. And sometimes they believe that you need their friendship, so they kind of guilt you into, into believing that that you should help them or you should give them stuff. That's how people use people. It's not a nice thing to do, but at the same time, you have to kind of be a little bit wise and realize and be able to discern when you have people around you that are trying to use you. I always say in my videos, you have people that basically take your kindness for weakness. And it's not just money that they use you for. I mean, people can use you to do favors. And the user is the type of person where when you need them, they're never there for you. It's always a take situation. It's never a give for them. They only utilize, you know, or they utilize what supply they can get from you. That's how users are. Okay. On the list, I also talked about, staying away from the baller. And the baller are the people that you go out with, people that you hang out with. Those are the people that you see again in the clubs or at social gatherings. And You know, you're trying to preserve your money, you're trying to save your coins, but yet they're buying everything in the store, they're buying everything at the party, they're buying everything in the bar. And 90% of the time, I believe, in my mind, I believe it's all fake, because they feel that they have to impress, they feel that they have to prove to people that they got it. You know, that's what ballers do. You know, I mean, they dress the part, they look the part, but they like to pretend that they have it. And most times they don't have it. Now, the trick is that, you know, sometimes they can manipulate you into thinking that they have it, but they don't really have it. But you, again, you have to be wise and know that these people aren't as wise, these people aren't as, you know, well off as they pretend to be. You have to be wise and realize that. So you want to kind of stay away from the baller when you're trying to level up your money. Those people are just about showing off, and they're not really, you know, in your corner in terms of growth. They want the center of attention on them. Another thing that I wanted to add to that is that a lot of these ballers, you know, it's a social media generation. They look at social media and they watch what's on social media, and they try to mimic, or they try to mirror people on social media. And as a result, this is where they start pretending like they have things that they really don't have. So it's, you know, it's sometimes it's fake. It's fake. So you want to try to stay away from the baller. The next person that I think you should kind of stay away from when you're trying to level up your money is the complainer. So everybody has issues. Everybody likes to talk. Everybody likes to have a listening ear. But most times you have people that chronically or constantly want to complain. You know, they always want to talk about, you know, what's going on in their life. I guarantee those people never have a listening ear to you. Or, you know, they'll call you on the phone and, you know, they'll ask you for the free therapy, because I call it free therapy. They'll call you and they'll complain, and they could tell you every single thing about their day, but they'll never ask you about your day. They'll never say, you know, how are you doing? What's going on with you? Even if you had like a, let's say you had a great promotion at work, or something really good happened to you, something happened to your family, your children, anything that's wonderful, they never want to hear. The complainer only wants to complain to you, and they only want you to listen to, you know, their accomplishments. And most times, you know, when they're complaining about money. They're complaining about money. Um, they're complaining about things that are far beyond their reach. They're complaining about, you know, people aren't doing for them. And my take on it is that if the complainer spent less time complaining, they wouldn't really have anything to worry about. They wouldn't have so much things to complain about. But because, you know, I've always said that it's easier for some people to complain than to make a change, or to, you know, make a difference. It's easier for them to complain. It's easier for them to tell their problems than actually, you know, work it out. So you want to stay away from the complaint. You want to stay away from people that take up your time but never have any time to listen or to validate your concerns or your feelings, right? So we stay away from the complainers, because listening and hearing somebody's complaint all day, absolute waste of your time. Absolute waste of your time. Waste of your time, waste of, you know, your mind space. Is like you're letting these people, you know, take up your head space. They're living, their problems are basically living in your head, you know, rent free. We don't have time for that. The next person that you want to stay away from when you're trying to level up your money is the abuser. So when we think of abuser, we think of, you know, probably something being physical, or, you know, abuse can be physical, it could be mental, it could be financial, you know, emotional. There's so many forms of abuse, and we're not talking on a psychological terms. What I'm talking about in terms of money. The money abuser is basically somebody that they take your kindness for weakness. In other words, they always want from you, but they never give you anything, right? The money abuser also guilt trips you many times into thinking that, you know, you owe them something. And again, this is where they say they take your kindness for weakness. They abuse your kindness. Right. And many times the abuser, even when you give them money or you lend them money, they don't even pay you back. They look at it as that, that you owe them something, or you're well off, or you're better off. And even if you are better off and you extend some type of kindness to the abuser, it doesn't mean that you don't want your money back. In one of my videos, I told a story of a friend of mine where she loaned another friend of ours, who was was a mutual friend. She loaned that friend some money. And, she was, hardworking girl, went out every day, she hustled. And when she loaned him the money, he was also working too. But again, he ran into a bind and a jam. And when she loaned him the money, you know, even when he got paid, she said to me, she said, Mel, he hasn't paid me back. I mean, she was basically asking me for advice of how to approach him to ask for her money. So I said, just ask him. I said, asking somebody for your money, you don't have to be rude. You don't have to be confrontational. Uh, because remember, when you loan in the money, right, you weren't rude, or they weren't rude when they came to borrow your money, right? And again, this is a case of, abuse because, he borrowed the money, but he didn't want to give it back to her. It's like he wanted to, to keep her change short. So later on, she came back to me. She said, I did ask him for the money. And when I asked him for the money, he literally said to her, the reason why he hasn't paid her back is because he didn't think she needed it. And she said to me, she said she was a little bit hurt. She wasn't really like upset and hostile when she was hurt. She says, I loaned him my money out of the goodness of my heart. She says, listen, I could always find something to do with my money. If it's even to put the money in the bank, even if I'm not spending it right away, I could always find something to do with my money. And she said to me, she said, what would make him think that I don't need my money? She says, I have money problems too, or I have money issues. I have money concerns. She's like, I have things to pay for. And I remember at the time the young lady was actually studying to get her master's degree. So she was literally paying, because it was a higher level degree. It wasn't the regular way she could get her financial aid and all that stuff. I mean, she done graduated already. She was paying for her master's. And she says, I use my money to pay for different things. I have my bills. I'm trying to, further my education. She said, I just loan him from the goodness of my heart. She said, but for that man to think that I don't need my money, or I don't need my money, she said it was very hurtful. But, to make a long story short, the gentleman did pay her back her money. But had she not addressed it, or had she not asked him for him, he was about to, take her kindness for weakness. He was about to be abusive with it and how was he being abusive? By not giving her money, like letting her sit in there sweat for her money. And it was terrible because at that point, he had gotten paid. He was working in his job, but this guy was paying everybody else off rather than paying her, which wasn't really good. But in the long run, she learned and she got her money back. And I'm sure in the end, I don't know about now if, she's still lending people money, but I'm sure in the end, she thought twice about lending money to people. Again, a lot of people, they take your kindness or weakness. They abuse your kindness. They look at it as, that you must give them things. You must be kind to them. And in reality, it doesn't really work like that. Like, you don't have to be kind to anybody. I also have another video on my channel where I talk about kindness, and being, that kindness is free. Kindness is good because when you're kind, there's a lot of blessings for you. Kindness allows different things to come to you. In other words, it basically circulates around. And on the issue of kindness, people that are kind to you, it's not really people that that are always going to be kind to you. In my own life, the people that have been the kindest to me have been like practically strangers. It hadn't been people that I knew that were, overly extensive with their hands or overly kind. It was people that I didn't know that always extended things to me and so forth. So I always try my best, and it's not a matter of taking advantage, but I always try my best to help or to give when I can give. I always try my best to be kind because at the end of the day, it really helps. It's a little bit thirsty, all this talking I'm doing, trying to hydrate. But yes, yes, use it to your advantage and be people are willing to help you. Use it to your advantage and be people are willing to help you. All right. So the next topic that I wanted to touch on is I also wanted to talk about another person that you should stay away from. And for me, this is like the biggest one. I want to tell you to stay away from the constant borrower. I want to tell you to stay away from people that are always trying to borrow money from you. At first, you know, it it becomes an annoyance when it's constant because you lend them today, they never give it back to you. When they do give it back to you, maybe they give it to you in bits and pieces. Mind you, never loaned that money in bits and pieces. You were already willing and able to help them, but for some reason, again, this is the case of people taking your kindness for weakness. They don't think that you need your money, and because they don't believe that you need your money, you know, let me tell you something. They don't think that you need your money, and because they don't think you need your money, they take advantage of you. Now, how I always look at it is, especially for me, again, and I always tell people on my channel, everything that I talk about on my channel, these are like testimonials. These things are testimonials. They're not stuff that I looked up in a book. They're not things that people told me. Everything that I talk about on my channel is facts. It's what I went through. And as a result, like I learned, I took the things that hurt me and the things that used to break me, and I learned how to overcome them. This is what my channel is about. Like, again, I'm a woman of God. I don't hide it. I let everybody know. This was like my calling to get up and talk about the things and the issues that bother us, or the things that hold us down and make us stagnant. I said in my life, I didn't want to be stagnant no more. You know, I didn't want to have to keep embarrassing myself and run into people that laughed at me when I had an issue. Because let me tell you, because these jokers, you pick up the phone, you call them, you say, hey, listen, I'm in a bind. They'll listen. And as soon as they hang up the phone, they talk about you or they just laugh at you. And I said, I'm not going to let nobody do that to me. So back to the borrower. In my own self, I practice not to lend and not to borrow. That means I don't make loans. If somebody comes to me and says, hey, I need a little bit of help, you know what I do? If you come and you say, listen, Mel, I need to borrow, $200. I'll give it back to you payday. If God has blessed me to give it to you, I'll say, listen, I'll give you, I'd rather give you 100 than lend you 200. Okay. I'd rather give you 100 and lend you 200. And I just count it as a loss, or I just count it as me being kind to someone, because I look at it, I look at it where if I extend any type of kindness, right, I look at it that God's going to multiply it for me tenfold. So that 100 that I loaned to you, or that I gave to you, the good Lord is going to multiply that for me back at least maybe 1,000. That's the return that I'm going to get. But again, I'm not working for a reward. I'm working out of the goodness of my heart. So that's where I got this thing where I said, you know what? I'm not borrowing from anybody because I don't want you to know when I'm down, right? And I'm not going to lend you either because I don't want to play this game, this horse and pony show of trying to get my money from you. Because listen, I don't know about you, but when it's time to pay them bills and you got everybody coming to your bank account, direct deposit this and withdraw that and this and that, me waiting for my money from you, it's going to make my bills overdraw. So I don't lend what I don't have. If I can, I give it. And don't keep coming back now. Right. So someone just said in the comment, they said, absolutely, women, 99% of the time you let a male borrow money and he's not going to repay you. Right. And this is what I was talking about before. Whether it's male or female, people take your kindness for weakness. This is the way people trick you. You might have a little thing going with the person, and, they take advantage of you. They knew in their minds that they were never going to pay you back. And it's such a cruel thing to do. You know, it's such a cruel thing to do, to extort money from people. And then when people ask you back for their money, you don't give it to them, you know? And Pie Spark Nuggets, you know, thank you for joining me. Yes, in everything in my life, I put God first. I always said on my channel, I don't hide it. I'm a prayer warrior. You know, first and foremost is my life, is my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I don't hide it from anybody. I let everybody know, because what I dealt with and what I went through my life, whether it be financially, emotionally, even some forms of physical, like, if it wasn't for God, I would not be here. I would not be here, and I would not be able to have these testimonies, and I would not be able to get up and be happy every day. Every day that I get up, I say to God, I thank God for giving me another day. To me, I feel like I feel like I gain so much each day. Like, I stay positive. I stay happy. Just me being able to get up and go to my day job, like, oh my God, I feel wonderful because I feel so blessed that I'm in, the physical health, and that I've been blessed to be able to go out and earn a dollar. And again, I don't have to be at anybody's mercy. And the times when I get down, of course, I get broke sometimes too. I'm not gonna sit up and act like I have it all the time. No, I don't. But I remember when I was coming up, there was a song that says, closer than a brother, my Jesus is to me. Whenever I feel like I'm running short, I sit and I talk to the Lord, and I say, God, I said, listen, I got to do this project and I got to do that tomorrow, and can you help me a little bit? Can you do something for me? Trust you me, the Lord always shows me a different way. When I first started this live, I talked about having those different accounts and so forth. Even sometimes I might have an account that I forgot about, and I'm like, whoa. If it's even have like a little $50 there, or even $100 there, I could go back and pay myself a little bit until it's time for payday. Right. Because again, God has already given me that wisdom to put things, or put money where I could easily access it when I need it. The Bible says faith without work is dead. Yes, we can get up and go to our day jobs every day. But if you don't know how to utilize that money or stash that money the right way, it's not going to work. You get what I'm saying? You have to be able to, utilize all the services that you have. So yes, 120%. Like, we're just all about leveling up and all about growth. And even on my channel, almost every, if not all, every single video that I do, I always encourage people to level up. As a matter of fact, this week, anybody that's live, if you get a moment or a chance to check out the channel, I have a video up, and I'm talking, generational curse, and I'm talking about like poverty and so forth. And I said in the video that generational curse stems from generations and people not knowing what to do and how to level up their money. And I had somebody comment in the video and says, well, no, the generational curse isn't caused by that. Generational curse is caused by buying junk. Well, yes and no. Whatever you consider, what you consider to be junk might not be junk to somebody else. Okay? How you spend your money is different from the way other people spend their money. It doesn't necessarily mean that what you spend your money on is junk or it's bad. But the point I was trying to make with generational curse is that this thing becomes, it's in your mind, and it's also cyclical. Okay? It's a cycle. This happens generations and generations, and people don't break it. They don't change. So, for example, whatever your age group is, okay, I'm in my 40s, right? Let's say, my parents or my grandparents before, they grew up in a line of poverty. And, they didn't know at the time when they were coming up, it wasn't easy, because generational curse had to do with, the environment and the way the world is being ran. It's not just you don't wanting to do anything to do with your life or not wanting to change. But what people don't realize is this. Okay, you learned about generational curse. The generation before you and before you and before you had poverty issues, right? But now we're living in a time where we can make it better, or we can change certain things. So why not try to change, what is already broken? Why not try to mend it? The question is, how do you change it? You get the knowledge. That's how you change it. You get the knowledge. Again, if you don't have any knowledge, you don't have any wisdom to certain things, or you don't understand what it is, there's no way that you could break those curses. There's no way that you could level up your money. Now, everything for me is, is biblical. I put out a short today, and I said in Hosea chapter 4, verse 6, it's a scripture that I live by. It says that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Okay? Yes, it's a true scripture. If you don't understand certain things and you don't know, if your knowledge is very low to certain things, if you're not letting yourself learn, you're not going to be able to progress and grow. So if you can't progress, if you can't make changes, how are you going to break that cycle of poverty? How are you going to do it? How? And then it goes back to the frustration. People get angry and say, oh, this one is against me. This one won't help me. Oh, Uncle so-and-so didn't give me no inheritance. Whatever it is, like, we have to stop blaming people and take accountability for our own misfortunes. And like I said, this is why I ensure, and I tell people all the time in my videos, pay yourself first. I released a video today, and I said in the video, I said, listen, I said, treat you like a bill. Treat yourself like a bill. Because when we get paid, the first thing that we want to do is we want to pay off all our bills. We don't want our credit affected. We don't want, our ratings to go down. Whatever it is, we don't want it done. But why not treat yourself like a bill and pay yourself first? Now, how do you pay yourself first? You could pay through your direct deposit, where you have a certain amount of money go to like a special account or one of your specialized bank accounts that I just talked about, opening multiple accounts, having a few accounts. I think the average person have at least 2 bank accounts, minimum 2, maximum up to 5. Okay. All I was simply saying is that if you're able to pay yourself first or treat yourself like a bill, you ensure that you're spending on you. I talked about spending your money on you. A lot of us are very kind, we're very generous, and we tend to take care of everyone else and everything else. A lot of us, if we're in relationships, whether it be our marriage, our significant other, whatever it is, your partner, you take care of everything else for them, or take care of their needs and their wants. You don't do nothing for yourself. Sometimes, again, we have our children, and I have my own children. I love them more than life. After God, my children follow. Let me tell you, but in order for me to be fit to take care of my children, I got to be able to take care of myself. So hence, I got to spend a little bit of money on myself before I start spending on them or spending other things, right? That's all I was encouraging people to do. I was encouraging people to actually spend a little bit of money on themselves. Spend a little bit of money on the things that make you happy. Now, again, back to what people are saying about junk. People might say, well, you're spending it on junk. Maybe you like to, I don't know, maybe you like to go get your feet done or whatever it is you like to do. Somebody might think that's just a waste of money. But if you think it's important and you find the necessity of getting your feet done or getting your nails done or getting your hair done or even going out and having something good to eat, why should you feel that it's junk? Why? If it's something that's making you happy, why is it junk? Why is it bad to spend your money on things that are, that are meaningful to you or things that make you happy? Right. You have to spend your money on yourself. Okay? I encourage everyone to do it. And I don't tell a certain gender. I tell everybody, male, female, anybody, whatever it is. Enjoy your money, spend it on you. And if you find the goodness in your heart to be generous and you want to spend it on somebody else or spending on something else, then go ahead. God will bless you for the good things that you do. But you have to be able to spend your money on things that make you happy, and you have to be able to spend your money on things that you enjoy. Okay? That's how I see it. The next topic that I wanted to talk about is, it's asking for help. So I talk a lot about independence. I talk about, financial growth. I talk about, not depending on people. I talk about basically self-sufficiency. But it doesn't matter how strong you are. It doesn't matter, how much growth you've made. Everybody falls into a trap or a rut where they need a little bit of help. So you would think that when you need a little bit of help, that you would go to the people that you've helped. It will be good, right? But for me, what I learned in my life, and again, this channel, It's based on the life that I lived, that Mel lived, okay? Me. It was never the people that I helped that helped me. Never. The people that I helped, they used me for years, months, weeks, days. And at the time, again, I wasn't as mature as I think I am. Like I was being used. Some of the using was done by people that were my friends. Some of the using was done by significant other. Some of the using was done by family members, parents, people that I thought were in my corner and didn't care about me. But I guess at the time I yearned and I seeked, and I need that validation so badly that I thought that if I continue doing more, that they would be there for me. Total opposite. Okay. All I'm simply saying is that, sometimes in order for you to repel or get people to stop, asking you for help and depending on you and using you, maybe you flip the script and you ask them to help you for once. Because I guarantee they're not going to help you. It's like the person that always calls you on the phone, as I mentioned before, looking for the therapy. They always want to talk. They always want to tell you how their day is. They always want to talk about what's going on in their life. But the moment you open your mouth and you try to, flip it and say, well, let me tell you what happened to me at work today. Or let me tell you, what's going on with, with my kids. Let me tell you what's going on in my house. Let me tell you what's going on with my health. Nobody hangs up the phones faster than those people. They don't want to hear. They don't care. It's the same thing when you flip the script and you ask somebody for help. When you flip the script and you ask somebody for help, they're either going to say yes or they're either going to say no. All right. And I guarantee that way, the moment you start asking them for help, they're going to disappear. And that will just prove to you and show you from the door that those people never wanted to do anything to help you in the first place. They never wanted to do it. They just wanted to constantly keep using you and using you and using you and using you for no reason. Well, there was a reason. It was for their gain. But when I say no reason that was going to be beneficial to you. It was only for their gain. So as a result, we got to basically, again, as I always encourage people, we stay away from people or we flip the script and ask the borrower or whoever it is to help you for once. And I guarantee they're not going to help you. I also want to touch on another video that I made. Name of the video is called I Don't Have Any Friends. And when I made this video, I remember when I was drafting it and I was, speaking to somebody that I know, and I said, what do you think of this title? As I was, thinking of a design, for my thumbnail. And yep, I said to the person, I said, what do you think of this title? I don't have any friends. And the person said to me, they said, wow, that's a terrible title. That's going to look so bad if you say you don't have any friends. And I said to them, I said, well, I really don't. So, yes, you do. You talk to people. Yes, I talk to people. I'm not a hermit. I live in this world. But when I say a friend, what's the definition of a friend? A friend is somebody that's there for you when you need them. A friend is somebody that cares. A friend is somebody that's affectionate. A friend is somebody that wants to be there for you. Right. But yes, you talk to people. Yes, you have people around you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're your friends. You know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily mean that they care about your well-being. A friend is a title that is given to so many people and they don't deserve it or they don't even understand what it means under that title. Calling me once in a while, because you haven't heard from me. Mind you, I'm the one doing all the calling. That doesn't make you a friend. Seeing you twice a year, if I run into you to the supermarket, that doesn't make you a friend. I don't consider you to be a friend. And I'm not going to go to my way to keep the friendship either. So yes, I know people, I know associates, I have people that I talk to, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're friends. Friendships is a very friendship. The word friendship is a very strong word, or the title friend is a very strong word. You have to be careful and you have to know who you're giving that title to. You understand? You have to know who you're giving that title to. You have to know. All right? You have to know. Because not everybody that you call your friend is your friend. Some friends are just there for the benefits. Hence the term friends with benefits. They're just there for the things that they could, get from you. It doesn't necessarily mean that, they care for you or they're going to be there for you. They don't. Not at all. I also want to go back to another topic. Speaking of friends, and this happens a lot in friendships. I kind of jumped a little bit. When I talked about the topic of people to stay away from, and I mentioned the abuser. I also want to touch on the topic of, financial abuse. Again, financial abuse occurs in so much different places, and it's really a topic that a lot of people are not. They're not addressing it. They're not talking about it. They're not. Financial abuse occurs in so much different areas, and sometimes it tends to happen again in friendships. It could happen in your personal relationships, and it could even happen with your family, because again, these people take advantage of you, and you sit there the whole time trying to prove yourself to them. That's why it continues. Sometimes you kind of have an idea that you're being financially abused, but for some reason you don't want to address it, or you're in denial, or you think it's not really happening, but it is something that's happening. Again, as I always say, it happened to me. It happened to me. Financially abused for many years. People that I thought were closer to me. I worked for them. I did everything for them. They never helped me when I needed them. But I'll tell you, there's one plus about those things that happened, the financial abuse or the other types of abuse. It made me a stronger person. It made me more self-sufficient. I didn't have to depend on anybody. I didn't have to beg anybody to do anything for me. You understand? Now, don't let me fool you. I still need help. Anywhere that I can get the help, I take it. Right. They say, God helps those who help themselves. Right. I always try to be self-sufficient. I always try to get help. And I do ask people for help. But at the same time, I don't depend on people anymore. I don't let anybody break, my heart. I'm telling you, Proverbs 23 tells us we have to guard our hearts, that we can't let people, break our hearts. And I'm not talking about like, a romantic way of breaking your heart. I'm talking about everything, any little thing that you need help with. When somebody can't help you or you have a setback, those things will break your heart. Those things will make you feel less than. They'll make you feel like giving up, but we're not about giving up. Now, again, I'm not, as I always say, I'm not going to lie to you. There are days when I don't feel like, pushing on and moving on and getting out there. But when I think of all the things that I've been blessed with, and I'm like, you know what? It isn't so bad. I can get through it. And once I sit there, I figure it out. Maybe I get my pen and scratch things down, and I said, okay, it's going to get better. Or, I do a round of prayer, and I ask the good Lord for guidance, and I say, dear Lord, can you lead me? Can you show me, or can you teach me? And so forth. In the end, it tends to work out. It always works out. Like, I'm happy. I'm so happy at the way things always work out in the long run. I just also want to point out that, after we measure everything in our lives and we seek and find out where things are going good and things are not, I just want to say that, in the end, we need to stop seeking validation. That's another video that I also did, and that video was so touching for me because, again, growing up and living my adult life, I kind of felt that, I worked a lot for people's approval. I don't know why. But when I finally realized who I was, I said, you know what? I'm not living like that anymore. I didn't need anybody to make me feel better anymore. I didn't need people to to validate me or give me approval. For example, if I wanted to go do something, like let's say like I wanted to start a business, I wasn't gonna go around asking and begging and telling people, oh, what do you think? Do you think this is a good idea? No, I didn't need their validation. If I wanted to something that's silly, even travel, or if I wanted to go on an exploration, I didn't, feel that I would have to discuss and tell people how I felt about certain things for them to validate and say, okay, Mel, this is a good idea. Like I don't need your approval. As I said, I already spoken to the Lord about it. I feel confident about it. I think it's whatever I want to do is a good idea. It's gonna do well. As long as I think it's a good idea, and as long as I feel that it's gonna do well. Why do I need to prove that to anybody? And we have to stop doing that. We got to stop, you know, asking people for validation. Okay? We got to stop asking people for approval. That's what validation is, getting people's approval or getting people's recognition. I always advise people, don't do that. You don't need to do that. You don't need to get nobody to approve what you want to do. You don't need nobody to approve and and tell you that this what you did is okay. For what reason? That doesn't serve any purpose when people, when you live or you yearn for people's validation. There's no reason for that. So, with that said, people, this has, been a terrific live. What I wanted to do in this live was I wanted to address the different topics that I covered in my video. I literally had a list here. Let me see, I had one, two, three, I had five topics that I wrote down. And the five topics that I wrote down, I think I talked about seven because a lot of them, they kind of spin off and they piggyback or they lead to the other topic. I mean, essentially, it's like we're going around in circles here, but we're going back to the one thing. The one thing that we're going to run in circles and coming back to is basically leveling up. We're talking about leveling up, having self growth, basically, and having a positive mindset. This is what my channel is about. I realized early in my life that once I had my mind right and I felt right and I felt good about certain things, nothing was going to shift or change me feeling and being positive about certain things. Like, I'm glad. I feel good about it. And I just hope that, for whoever subscribes to this channel or whoever is growing with me on this channel, like, I do appreciate your time. I hope the content resonates with you. I hope you can find some type of meaning in this content. Because for me, getting out here every day and putting out these videos, it's so meaningful for me. It's so meaningful when I get a comment and somebody says, "Oh, you know what? I can relate to that," or "This happened to me, but I'm different now. I'm better now," or "I grew." It is such a wonderful feeling when people tell you stuff like that. You understand? But anyway, people, if you got this far in the live, whoever came on the live, I thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoyed, talking about these topics. Hope to see you again in the next live. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening.